Oh, the new heaven, the new Jerusalem. Of Revelation 21. Where God has a promise to wipe away every tear from our eyes, and death shall be no more. There shall be mourning, nor crying, nor pain any more. The former things have passed away. And James 3:26 says, the body without spirit is dead. When Jesus went into Jerusalem and the Pharisees told his followers, disciples, apostles to be quiet, he replied, I tell you, if they keep quiet, the stones will cry out. And the new heaven is written as gemstones, and all of them refract the whole spectrum of light, because remember, God is love and God is light, and light can only come from love. There's darkness when we fall short of love, and to fall short of love is what a sin is and what it does, because it activates our autonomic system, sympathetic adrenaline stress response. And so we're living in a world that's fueled by adrenaline, which is actually fear, and it feels good, but only for a short time. It's not sustainable. So then it is actually the source of all addictions, and it's unsustainable. And I'm sure most people have stress, anxiety, and cortisols are at the root of all disease in the body, excess cortisols. So we need to attain to our naturally occurring endorphins, which come from the parasympathetic nervous system in our body, which is the temple for God's love to dwell. So the translation of the healing properties of the gemstones cited for the new heaven at Revelation 21, which is also New Jerusalem, which is peace for all nations, because love is not a cortisol in every single person, everyone on the planet, every human being, and it's not dependent on any one religion. It's dependent on whether we have the spirit of God's love, or the spirit of love, because God is love and all else is stress and fear. And it's the same in everyone. Although we lose the oneness when we go into stress, because then we're divided by the confusion that it causes. And so that oneness is a state of sound mental health from the whole spirit of love anointed, which is the love, joy and faith, from goodness, kindness and mildness, with patience and self-control, not to sin or hurt another or abuse another. It's time to end all abuse if we want to attain to peace. And we're in June 2025. I'm not exactly sure what the date is today, but it's Thursday morning, and we're in the end times. We're seeing the scriptures being fulfilled, the scriptures prophesied from long ago. I find it really hard to think that the scriptures prophesies nuclear, but it would seem that they do. And God is in control of everything, so he would have been behind the development of nuclear power. And at the end of the day, man has the choice. It's man's choice what we do with everything that we have, what we do with the knowledge that we have, how we live our lives day to day, and what decisions are made. If we put God first, and God's moral and righteous laws for love to prevail, to exist, then we find happiness, we find the spirit, we find the peace, we find the happiness, we find the joy. But if we go against God, then we have the stress and the activation of the conscience and the guilt and the shame and the loss of self-worth and anxieties, which become mental health disturbances, extremes of different sets of feelings. But the oneness and the peace only comes from God's moral and righteous laws for love to exist, for peace and safety. It's all about creating peace and safety. And as individuals, we all make our choices. We have the freedom to do that. But if we're being ruled by things that are not in harmony with God, then we get the world that we're living in now. But God has a promise for the change. And so the New Heaven translation of the healing properties of the stones, which also relate to the tribes of Israel. And at Revelation 7, it includes Manasseh, who is Joseph's son, I think. And that's the double portion, because he was a man integral to God. And if we look at the integrity of Joseph and his Technicolor Dreamcoat, well, have a little thought that perhaps the Technicolor Dreamcoat, the colours being in our aura from the light that we manifest when we have God's love, when we're in integrity to God. And many Christians don't know or understand and agree with chakras and healing, but they're just the energy vibration of love from our endocrine system, from our hormones, from the glands in our body, which either produce love or fear. All comes down to love or fear, and that's down to our nervous system. And so the vagus nerve is a very important one, but our pineal gland. And I was listening to something yesterday which said that on autopsies of people that have died since the vaccine, that the pineal gland is affected. And our pineal gland is our third eye. It's that place where, when we look up, we access our emotional and reasoning brain, and that meditative state, that peaceful state, that imagination and creativity. So creativity is and the arts are all about expression. We have to be able to express our feelings, because that's the only place we can become conscious, and the only place that's in the now. So the end is the beginning of the word endorphin. The end is the beginning of the word. The end is the beginning of love's promise to end man-made trauma, grief and pain, to end inner turmoil and confusion, to end abuse, regret and shame, to end the sickness of mind delusion, to end the trauma, grief and pain. And the scriptures talk about all of this. But I guess an endorphin is a modern day language of our times, as is a cortisol, as scientists have made all of those things conscious. But drugs are not the answer. We have to attain to that love within ourselves. So we have to have courage to face the fears, to face the trauma, to face the hurt, grief or pain. And we have to have faith, which is the assured expectation of the things hoped for, the evident demonstration of realities not yet beheld. So we hope for happiness and peace. And we have to wrestle to understand what's right and what's wrong. Where did it go wrong? Where did that pain come from? What abuse caused that trauma? And then we have to be able to forgive, which is really hard when something that's wrong has happened. But forgive is forgiving love. And forgiveness is the way that we heal within ourselves. Ultimately, justice must be upheld for peace and safety, and the law is from Jesus Christ for his attaining to his whole spirit of love. Anointed, against which there is no law, because that's where the peace comes from. And it's hard work, but that's the wonderful counsel. So we have to hear the wonderful counsel. We have to hear what the pain is saying, because when we become conscious of it, we can let it go. And we have to adhere to the process of love, of the moral and righteous love of God. And then that's when our body will release the endorphin reward. That's when the body will change back into the parasympathetic nervous system. That's where the healing comes from. We have to tolerate one another and others, because everybody's on their healing journey and learning journey. And there has to be trust, because if you haven't got trust, you've got fear and anxiety. And only the truth will set us free, which is represented by the amethyst. So we have the tribes of Judah, Reuben, Gad, Asher, Naphtali, Manasseh, Simeon, Levi, Issachar, Zebulun, Joseph and Ben. And the gemstones of jasper, sapphire, chalcedony, emerald, sardonyx, sardius, chrysolite, beryl, topaz, chrysoprase, hyacinth and amethyst. And on the gates, now Jesus returns through the east gate. So from a spiritual perspective, that's when we can attain to trust and the truth and mourn where those hurts are, and to be able to discern what is right or wrong, down the judgment for justice and peace and safety. And so mourning will be no more, as God says, because when we mourn our grief, hurts and pains, we are comforted. And so that grieving process is absolutely essential. And that's where the healing comes from. So you can look at that from another aspect, because the tribes of Israel actually manifest into love, into the cup of love. And the cup of love, the whole spirit of love, faith, discernment for what is righteous, to to make us conscious, to have healthy brotherly love, for communion with the whole spirit of love. And the bowl of love, the two witnesses, two olive trees, but if we look at the capital O as whole, that's two whole lives whole in spirit. So Zechariah 4:2, not by a military force nor by power, but by my spirit, Jehovah of armies has said. The cup of love. And those I've discerned from Revelation 2 and 3. And we are all, when we can attain to God's love, we're all a royal priesthood, a holy nation, God's special possession, that you may declare the praises of him who called you out of darkness into his wonderful